Decided to make mine in high def.
Welcome to Eye on the Illini. This is Mike Kegley here with Brad Sturdy, Edric Brent. Brad, I'm going to say something that will annoy Illini fans, but I got to say it. This Illinois team has lost 4 Big Ten games by a whopping 9 points. 3 in overtime, 1 on a last-second shot. So the weaknesses of this team have been apparent the whole season. Why, after this loss at UCLA, which was not a good one, why should we just pack it in and assume that this team's going to suck in the NCAAs now?
Because that's what we do, right? I mean, that's what fans do. They lose their minds. No, you're exactly right, Mike. And you think about this, like they've had despite their inadequacies, on the defensive end, not being overly athletic, despite the problems they've had, they're still competing to the end in these games. It doesn't road, home, doesn't matter. They're still competing and having a chance to win every game. Now, one argument you could make is that they've really struggled in a lot of close games. They haven't won close games. But they've also basically blitzed people in a lot of games. And really good teams, they've blitzed them. Obviously they won at Purdue, they won at Nebraska, and they won at Iowa. Games that they really had control of, in the second half late, with Nebraska and Iowa. But Purdue, they found a way to win. So I don't know. I just feel like they're fine. I mean, they may not be the best team in the country, but how often does the best team in the country heading into the tournament win the tournament? You know what I mean? It's who gets on a hot run. We know they can get on a run because of what we've seen, right? And I think also the other thing that people discount, Mike, is that it's great to have Kylan Boswell and Andrei Stojakovic back. Everybody also still has to find their roles and fill what they're doing. And they've had them. They had one game where they dominated USC. That's great. And they came out. If you take the first 50 minutes of that trip west, the first 50 minutes were insanely good. They outscored them by 59 points. Those 2 teams in 50 minutes, and then kind of the wheels fell off. But that's going to happen. I like the way they battled down the stretch. Came back, had the lead. All they got to do is get one stop. So yeah, it's all part of this. It's part of the process. You're not going to have a perfect season. You don't go 37-2 very often, or 38-1 or whatever. What you're going to do. Maybe they would have got if they win the title game, right? That doesn't happen. So they're still in a good spot to be a 2 seed. 2 seed's pretty good at the NCAA tournament.
Ked, should we be panicking because of the UCLA loss?
I don't think panic is the right word. I understand the frustrations. I'm going to take a different approach with this. Because of the games and the closeness and the overtime games, the frustration that I've seen, I don't know about you guys, is that their inability to close out games. And obviously all the blame is going to go to Coach Underwood because he's the head coach. But I saw a statistic, I don't know if it's true or not, they have not won an overtime game in 2 years. They've, we can talk about it. I think it's not a compliment that they've lost these games this close this year, 3 overtime games, I believe. You need to win some of those. And I think the worst one of all of them, out of all the overtime games, it was last weekend. It was the UCLA game. And having time, sat and thought about it, different things that I thought you could have done differently. And that doesn't make it easy because it's after the fact. One of the things I've talked about, actually, I've talked to a couple of coaches. One of the coaches, which I kind of like this one. One of the coaches said, because it was only 4 or 5 seconds on the clock. I think, the 3 of us, we talked about, with Ben Human could have pressured the ball. One coach made a comment to me, 2-2-1, 1-2-2 press, because there's no way he could dribble the ball off the court in that length of time. He'd have to pass the ball to somebody. If you go man to man, you run the risk of a foul. If you put Ben Humerkaus on the ball, he or whoever you put on the ball, they may not keep up with him because this kid, from giving him credit, He's one of the fastest kids in college basketball. Brad mentioned that the last time. A lot of people thought, and I don't like this one, putting a big man on the top. I think that's kind of overrated in that situation because it's a desperate to get the ball in bounds. Looking back at it, I would have done the zone press. I wouldn't have done a man. But I think Mike and Brad, from my perspective, fans are sick of seeing these games. Some of these games you need to win. I think the biggest statement, they want adjustments. They want to see adjustments made. And I don't know if they've seen those because and all those games are lost differently. They're not lost the same. There's as a matter of fact, Keaton Wagner had a shot and Michigan State could have won it. And he threw the ball out to Zonomir. They want to see imagination. They want to see things done differently from an X's and O standpoint, not just the same thing. And I have to be honest with you, and you guys may totally disagree. I'm on board with that because you have to do something. My last comment is, you go back to the game, it was 91-90, and I mentioned this the last time. When you call timeout, you did nothing different. Nothing was done differently. And I've watched this game 4 times. I put myself through it, and it wasn't done differently. You have to make some adjustments with that. I don't care if it's Coach Underwood, Zach Hamer, whoever. I'm not even putting fault on that, but you have to do something different. You can't continue this trend because if you get in a tournament and you do this and the history's not on your side, you lose.
Yeah, and Brad, we talk about the seeding. You 2 seed versus a 3 seed. What's the importance of those seeds in your eyes? And for Illini fans who are wanting Illinois to keep, to get to a 1 seed, I think they can still do it, but I think that would require them to beat Michigan 2 times, once in the this Friday and then once in the Big Ten tournament, which would be the championship game. That's the only way I can see them making a 1 seed. Do you think they're locked in on the 2 seed line, or do you think there's a chance of falling to the 3?
I mean, losing to Michigan, then winning your last 2 games, then winning your first round of the Big Ten tournament, I think you're 2. I don't think because you're going to be playing. I mean, losing to Michigan is not like a bad loss. I mean, they're the odds-on favorite. I mean, I know Duke is ranked ahead of them now, but Michigan still, I think the odds still have them as the favorite to cut down the net. So, but win that game, win the next one. Now you're sitting there.
Brad, we lost your audio there.
So if you're sorry, you got me back?
A little bit.
Okay, so if you are if you win that Michigan game now, you win the last 2 games, you put yourself in a position to be a 1 seed. I mean, you have an opportunity there. Because right now, what do they sit? They're sitting 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 6, 7, right? They're sitting 6, 7 on the seed line, pretty much, and that's pretty much where you see them. So if they are in that spot, you beat Michigan, don't you jump? Beating Michigan doesn't move you up to maybe 6 or 5 on the seed line. Well, then you're right there, and there's lots of action going on. A lot of these conference schedules are backdated, and now you're playing. There's a comment over here that talks about, Brad has a lottery pick and he's wasting him. How they're ranked 10th in the country. They're a 2 seed. What's AJ DeBonsa? I mean, isn't he's the number 2 pick? What's Darren Peterson? He's the number 1 pick. Those guys are ranked behind Illinois. How is he wasting him? I don't understand the logic. Please explain.
I think the frustration with them, I think they want more. And Brad, you know that. They want more. And that's a very good analogy on your part. I think they're just, I think they're tired. Last Saturday was tough. It was a tough loss to swallow. I think people are still mad about it and upset about it. And you're right. You could look at the alternative because, BYU paid all this money to get those players and Illinois is ahead of them. Mike asked about the seeding. I agree with you. I don't think there's a possible chance in hell they're going to get a 1 seed even if they beat Michigan. I just don't, because I think the committee or the way the seedings are set, I think they got their mind set up. I think the best they can do is a 2. If they screw up, they can get a 3. They won't drop below the 3 line.
So Ken, I got to ask, who's the 4th one?
See, and that's debatable. Okay, so that's debatable. Like the other night, I saw this. I want to put Iowa State got put up there, and I think they put up there because they just beat it was Houston, I think. You know, and so
their next game.
Yes, they did. You know, and then they lost to Kansas.
So I mean, somebody has to be that fourth number one seed.
It is, and so, but when you look at losses, I think Illinois. I don't know the criteria. There's a lot of criteria that's going to go into that, which we know. You would think the Big Ten would have some weight with it, but if you look at where they are right now, you mentioned 6, 7. They have Purdue ahead of them, and I don't see how that's possible either. Because I was looking the other day, when you look at their schedule, other than Alabama, who do they really beat? You know, Illinois has Texas Tech, they have Tennessee, you know, they have Purdue, they have Nebraska. You look at Purdue's schedule, you tell me who on that schedule, out of conference and in conference, why are they ahead of Illinois? So I don't know, Brad. It just seems like Illinois is stuck on that 2 line. I think if they beat Michigan, win the 2 games, win the Big Ten tournament, that's definitely a possibility. I don't think they're interested in seeing them. We can talk about them winning it all. I don't think the committee's going to do that unless they win the Big Ten tournament. That's just my opinion.
Somebody has to be that fourth number one seed. We've seen Houston since those seedings came out. On last Saturday, where Illinois was the 7 seed overall, we've seen Houston lose to Arizona and Kansas. They've lost twice since that happened. We've seen, Michigan lose, obviously. We've seen Iowa State. They lost on the next game they played to BYU. And there's still tough games going up. Iowa State still plays Texas Tech and at Arizona. There's a lot of difficult games going on. And so it's tough. I mean, and then we've got, Michigan State at Purdue. That's going to be interesting tonight. And so that's Purdue's opportunity maybe to move there. I don't know. I just feel like it's there. If you win out and you're 25-6, you win your 28-6, and you are 16-4 in the Big Ten with all those quad 1 and A wins that they're going to have, man, I find it hard. I don't know if anybody, they're at least the top 2 seed as you look at that. I mean, everybody's got Florida up there. They have 6 losses too, and they, they obviously, you look at Florida, they lost to Duke. They lost to Arizona, but what are their big wins? Tennessee, Vanderbilt used to be a big win. I don't know if it is anymore, but yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of teams on that line that I think that it's going to play out how it plays out here. I mean, whoever wins down the stretch, maybe it's Connecticut, but again, Connecticut beat Illinois. But now the Big East is so bad. I don't know. They don't have a lot of quality wins either. So I guess we'll see. It'll be fun though. I'd like to win out and see what happens.
Hey, Mike, St. Dominic's had a good question. I don't know if you were going to mention this tonight at all. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. This is a tough year for that award to me, I think.
For which award are you talking about? The freshman of the year?
Freshman of the year,
or the
possible
player
Big
of the
Ten.
year?
Both. I mean, like he'll win freshman of the year. That's not debatable. The player of the year, I think, is tough. I don't. The guy who I think
this still makes no sense to me. So
that?
Bill Self sucks too. Then, according to him, Bill Self sucks. Bill Self, terrible coach because he's lost to bad teams this year. He lost to Cincinnati at home last Saturday with Darren Peterson. I don't know.
Kind of with Darren Peterson.
He played that game, didn't he? I mean, so that's my thing. It doesn't make sense. Like it makes no sense. And people say they want more. People want them to win in March is what they want. Yeah. You can't win in March until it's March.
And you got to get there too.
But I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't understand that. I mean, if you want to say Big Ten freshman, I thought Kofi was a pretty good freshman. I don't know. I think, so I don't know. I don't know. If you want an NBA lottery pick, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's just weird.
Well, and there's the why doesn't Brad use his timeouts in the first half? And I think we can all go back to timeout usage is very, very personal. If you recall, Bobby Knight would almost never, ever call the first time out of a game because it meant he was like having a bad day or something. So, I mean,
he was a bad coach too then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Obviously.
It's kind
Obviously.
of hard to know.
No, I do agree with. I'm not saying they're wrong here when I look at this situation. What happened there a little bit with that run was you missed the under 8 timeout. They had no stoppage between the under 8 and the under 4 timeout. That's why you had an under 4 timeout, and then you had a timeout. I think it was at 1:46. Then you had halftime. Then you had the under 16 timeout, and then he called another timeout at 14:47. So here's my problem with the whole idea of using a timeout. I'm fine with using a timeout. If you're going to use a timeout, then change something. They used it. They had the timeout at the under 4. They had the 1:46 timeout. They had the halftime. They had the under 16 timeout, and then a timeout at 14:47. That is 5 stoppages in the course of about whatever. I mean, you could say 10 minutes of game time. And I never saw them like make this. So if you want to be mad about time, I'd be more mad about not changing and not making enough adjustments to change things. So using a timeout becomes like this thing. Well, they had what, 4 opportunities. Make a change, do something different, figure something out. So my thought is, if none of those timeouts made a difference to stop the run, why would one more have made the difference? What would have been the difference? If they're just going to keep doing the same thing, how would you change something with that other timeout?
The only difference is maybe Wagler gets another 60 seconds to get, or 2 minutes to get some energy back. Other than that, I got nothing.
No, defensively, that wouldn't have mattered. I'm just going to be honest with you. We know defensively they had guys out there. I don't know if they were tired because it's not me. I'm not them. But there were guys out there in that first half when they went on that 45-0 run against Illinois that just put their hands up and didn't go out, didn't show, didn't get out of the stands. They just stuck their hands up. We all saw that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and pretend that we didn't see it because we did. That would help. Taking defense, playing defense and rebounding, yes, and it's hard. You're tired. I understand it. If you're tired, you don't have to grab the jersey. Ask to come out. Because you hurt the team. I thought there were a couple of players that hurt the team that was tired, and who didn't say anything. You cannot do that in a game like that where you had a big lead and you lost it. And on top of the fact, and teams are going to make runs. I don't care who you are. We've all seen it. You can have biggest lead. Somebody's going to make a run. But the team that, like Brad did mention, the free throws and rebounding. He mentioned free throws and rebounding. Yes, it matters. I'm not going to say it didn't. But they didn't get stops, and they didn't make any adjustments, I don't think, to do anything differently. I just feel when teams are doing that to me, I'm going to do something different defensively, or I'm going to make changes defensively. And when I need a basket or a bucket, I'm going to make sure. I don't care. I'm not going to sit and talk about throwing the ball in the post. You have to find a way to stop the bleeding, whether it be at the free throw line, a layup, whoever. I don't even care who it is. At this point, it doesn't matter. But you have to show that, because what teams will start to see, well, you play Illinois, they call timeout. They're going to do the same thing. Occasionally, we were really happy when we saw they went to a tap a couple times. I'm not saying you need to do that every time, but that has to change. I don't care. I'm going to argue that with anybody. I don't give a crap who gets on this podcast who makes a comment. You have to be prepared for things like that.
Yeah, and I think the frustration, I think a lot of it goes to what Brad said. I don't get the modern era of coaches who are probably mostly younger than us now, who don't want to put a man on the ball. I will tell you that on the inbounds play, I will tell you as the guy who had to be the guy on the ball on most inbounds play and the guy who had to inbound the ball in, I much, much, much preferred to inbound the ball when I got a better field of vision, and I didn't have somebody particularly bigger than me that I had to try to pass over or around. I don't know how you guys coach when you're out there, but to me, and this is not a Brad Underwood problem, this is college coaches across the spectrum. They've seemed to have forgotten how much harder it is to inbound the ball with pressure.
It makes a difference, mate. But I'm sorry, Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would have I understand what they're trying to do. I think the one thing in all of their, how sometimes you do things that you try and prevent something happening so hard that you allow it to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think they didn't want Dent to go downhill and do that. I think they were worried about Denton. They were worried about if they got a spot up there from Bilodeau, right? So and that was about it. I think so. They were going through that, and it was like, I'm not going to let him downhill, so I'm going to have another defender back there to help stop him. But I will say, give Cronin credit. I thought he designed a really good play, get him on an angle, so he wasn't going straight back, or he wasn't going straight sideways, getting angle, able to get up court. And then the reality is, when they set the screen, somebody has to jump out and stop that. You have to jump out and stop that and force him to go around.
The other thing I thought, Brad and Mike,
yeah.
They didn't turn him. They didn't turn. I mean, and he's fast. I understand it. Kylan Boswell would have been the guy I would have had, but all you needed was a second. That's why I said to you, I would probably press. The worst thing that could have happened, it wasn't even the shot. The shot stuck. I get it, but you needed a second. Get up, turn him. You turn him once or twice. That layup doesn't get off. They didn't do that. That's why I said if you zone press, diamond press, man, I wouldn't have did man to man. I just wouldn't, because I think he's so fast. And then the one thing you didn't want to have happen was commit a foul. And I think when you look at, if you guys are going back and look at it, Zonomir's feet were just all out of position. They looked awful. I think he probably would have had a much better chance of blocking the shot. I don't know what he was thinking, and I'm not upset with him, because he's done a tremendous job. He's changed a lot of teams' mindset when they get to the post. But we can talk about this, but if anybody really thinks about it, this is what they need to learn. What are you going to do the next time you're in a situation? What are you going to do in the Big Ten tournament if this happens again? What are you going to do different? This is what I'm saying I want to see different, and I think they should too. I'm not saying they don't. I know they work on these things. At least I think they do. But you can't continue to do the same things and lose the same way. That's just my thought. Sorry. And I don't expect them to win all those games. I think the fact that they were in the Michigan State game, to me, was a blessing. I don't care who was playing, who wasn't. Tom Izzo, as much as we've given him, I'll say Kedrick has given him flack, it's hard for me to admit this. He's a hell of a coach, man. That dude does more with less talent. He has a really good system. I mean, he does, and I don't like to admit it, but I have to tell the truth. His system is so well. They don't have the talent that Michigan or Illinois has right now, or Purdue, for that matter, I don't think. But he runs good stuff. He runs good sets.
Brad, did you have any good thought or have any thoughts on that?
I never have good thoughts, Mike. No, I agree with I do agree with Ked. I think Izzo does a good job. His guys compete, and he gets his guys to play hard, and they have a certain style. It's going to rebound. But, I don't know if it's, I think sometimes we get, too caught up in, like, I don't know, it's this, it's that, and I don't know. I don't think there's a set way that you have to, have to play. And that's the most important thing I understand. Like Ked said, but you have to be able to make that adjustment and find a way that fits your guys. Defensively, my biggest concern about this team is not offense. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time they had a really bad offensive game. Because even when they didn't score, or make shots, they still scored at a high level. Even their bad half at UCLA was 1.2 points per possession or something like that. I mean, for half the teams in the NCAA tournament, that's a great half. For Illinois, it's not. But because their defense has been so porous at times, and it's not all the time, again, it's a matchup thing. Look what they did against Indiana. Indiana scored 51 points. Look what they did against Tennessee. Tennessee couldn't score. The teams that give them trouble, and they've shown flashes of doing it better, but the teams that give them trouble are teams that can really space the floor, spread them out, and then they have a guard who can attack downhill, but they have bigs who keep the other Illinois bigs, out of the lane. And so now you can do things. And they force Illinois to play zone. You got 5 shooters on the floor. It's really hard to guard. I mean, and that's been, that's kind of the premise of the Illinois offense, though, too, right? I mean, that's what they do. They spread you out and they attack. So it's one of those things. I don't think it's going to change. I don't think suddenly they're going to become a great defensive team, but that's where matchups are really going to matter in the NCAA tournament. When we look at how teams match up and what happens, that's a big part of it. And, I think the other thing is that if they do shoot the ball well, they win. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, it's pretty simple. If they shoot the ball well, they're going to win. Now, they can win without shooting the ball well, But when they win, when they shoot the ball well, they're going to win. If they shoot the ball well against Michigan, they're probably going to win.
Okay, I want to comment. Okay, I'm glad you ended with that. I agree with that 90%. And that's a pretty high percentage. I think if they shoot the ball well, they can beat anybody in the country, but I don't know if they're going to do that all the time. I don't know if they're going to win if they don't shoot the ball well. And the reason I say that, look how well they shot the ball in the first half, and then they couldn't put it in the ocean, and then they lost. So that's my concern, because I do think, and you mentioned the tournament, I don't know who's going to win it, and there's no teams out there that are invincible. I think the two toughest teams, I'm not saying they're the best, is probably Michigan and Arizona. Those are two teams I would not want to face on a neutral court. I don't care if Duke beat them last week. I really don't care. Could care less about that. I don't want to play Duke because I think they get the benefit of a lot of calls sometimes, and I thought I saw it against Michigan, so Illinois wasn't playing. But I think those teams are tough, and anybody else can be beaten. And do you look at all these upsets that's happened in the last couple of weeks, guys? It's going to be a great tournament. I've said this before. I think the days of the Cinderellas, I think they're done for a while because of the NIL. I think those players are now on different rosters. The players who are great players, they leave. So I think, we didn't have a Cinderella story last year, which makes the tournament fun. But I think matchups is going to be key. What seed Illinois gets, I don't think it matters where they play. Illinois plays better on the road, I think, personally, sometimes. I mean, I wish the Michigan game was kind of on the road, to tell you the truth, because they do play better. I think they're more focused. But having said that, it's going to be a great tournament. I just don't want to see Illinois get beat in the first round like they did in 21 when they were number one seed when they had Ion Kofi. I don't want to see that. This team deserves to at least get to a Sweet 16 or Final 8. I mean, I really think they deserve to be in that position, but you got to make the adjustment. You got to make – there's no sense in trying to change who you are now, but you got to make adjustments because the team's not going to be more athletic. They're not going to be more quicker, less quicker, faster, whatever. It's not changing.
Well, I do think this question, what is your level of confidence in Brad in the tournament? Well, I think he's like every other coach. You're not good in the tournament until you are. Lou Henson, we had to hear for a decade that he couldn't coach, and then they went to the Final Four, and you're worried about like I said, that knee injury to Lowell Hamilton. You wonder what would have happened without that. Let alone, the air ball was almost like a mirror image of North Carolina State winning with the Wittenberg air ball that ended up being a layup to win the title, against Georgetown. And so, I think those or I remember it was Houston. But those are the type of things you look at and you're like, like I said, if you remember, Bill, who did Self lose to back-to-back in Kansas, thought they were going to fire him? Bucknell and
Bradley.
Somebody else.
Bradley.
Bradley.
Wasn't it? Bradley? Yeah, the bees. Killer bees, baby.
Yeah. So Bucknell, so he was Bucknell Bill for a year or something, and then he goes out and wins a title, and then everybody promptly forgets about his inability to coach in the NCAA tournament. So and I guess the two biggest ones were Dean Smith, who had multiple flame outs in the tournament until Michael Jordan saved his butt, and what's his name at Syracuse? Really, basically all he needed was Carmelo Anthony to carry him to a title, and he still wouldn't have one. So yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to know, and you can't tell me Steve Fisher was a better coach than Lou Henson.
I think a lot of the guys, I know people don't want his. I think a lot of it's, you have to have some luck. You just have to have some luck. You have to have things go your way. We don't know this for sure, but just what would have possibly happened? Excuse me. What would have possibly happened when Illinois didn't play UConn? They would have went to a Final Four more than likely. They ran into a team that won it and one of the best teams. So I think that's when Brad mentioned all about seeds and who you play. That stuff's going to come into play. And what you need is to have one of the better players have enough shooting night or they get in foul trouble. Something like that matters. When you look at the Final Four run in 89 they had, you could go back to a number of things that really went their way. Look at the 2005 team when they were down in Arizona. Come on. You know what I'm saying? Those are things that you have to have go your way. I think this team is good enough to go to a Final Four, but the luck, the adjustments, the 50-50 balls, and I don't know if Brad, you mentioned it or not, somebody else did, but I think it was you, Sturdy. It's really weird when Markovic doesn't play well, this team loses all the time. Have you guys noticed that?
Oh yeah, they're. I think I have that stat where they've only lost one game when he's at an offensive rating over 100. That was Michigan State when Wagler couldn't throw it in the ocean. So it's all been about, Markovic has been the key. They're like 20 and 21-1 when he has an O rating under 100, and they're 20-1, and they're 2-5 when he's under 100. So, I mean, it's pretty wild if you think about how important he is, because he's that other piece that really changes things for them. And I agree. I mean, you should be skeptical. I mean, everybody should be skeptical. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be skeptical in what happens. I mean, but like Brad has said many times, you got to keep putting yourself in that position, right? I mean, and that's what you have to do, and then you have an opportunity. I mean, I don't know when did Matt Painter didn't make an Elite Eight till 2019, didn't make a Final Four until 2024, and he started in 2006 at Purdue, right? I mean, so I don't know. It's not easy. I think a lot of times people think it's easy, and it just isn't that easy. It's a difficult. It's hard to win. Winning is hard. Everybody's trying to win. Everybody's got tons of money they're throwing around, and so, but you got to find a way in March. But the only thing, like I always say, you can't win in March till it's March. I mean, and that's just the way things work. And they got to have, if it happens more and more, then maybe you start to wonder. I mean, I don't know. Do you have confidence? I mean, do we have confidence in other guys? TJ Otzelberger, do we have confidence in him in March? I mean, I don't know. What has he done that in March? I mean, he lost a lower seeded Illinois team and Brad Underwood. How could that be? Right? I mean, so I don't know. Is Tommy Lloyd the guy? I mean, was it the round one exit as a 2 seed that made him a good March guy? Never getting past the Sweet 16? I don't know. I mean, so all these guys have holes in their resume. John Shire, he he had the best team last year and lost. I mean, the greatest offense ever until Illinois came along, and he lost to a team with kid Cooper Flagg, generational talent. And he didn't win. So I don't know. I mean, I just think it's hard. Winning is hard, and we make it like it's, we think, well, we should win every game, and we should go to the Final Four every year. And if it was that easy, then everybody do it, right? I mean, everybody's trying to do the same thing. I can't.
Sorry, I said I'm sorry. Everybody have bad losses, Brad. You're 100% right. Yeah. I think a lot of people forget. You mentioned we look at Izzo and everybody else. They lose games. They all have that hole that you mentioned. At some point in time, Brad Underwood had his when he had an eye on Kofi. I mentioned that earlier. So it's going to happen, and those guys. And you do win. I mean, think about it. That happened in 2021 or whatever it was, and then last 2 years ago, they're in the final eight or sweet. So yeah, the Elite Eight. So they all have. Every coach has experienced it. You don't want your team to do it. And I'm also, I've made this comment a lot of times. Everybody can't win, and somebody's going to lose. There's only be one team standing, and if you want your team to go out and compete, that's what you have. I mean, you have a team that that can take the floor. When you look at the entire athletic program, the top three sports, revenue sports, if you will, they have a chance to compete every time they take the floor, and that's what you want. Because in the years past, we've all seen it. We've lived the John Gross days when they didn't. You knew they were going to play somebody, they're going to get beat. When the women played somebody, they didn't have a chance in hell, and then Brett Bielema. Before he got there, Lovie Smith, you were getting beat 65-0 on a regular basis. So you have a chance to compete, and that's what you want. And I do think, and I will say this, and Brett, this as well. Coach Underwood was a really, really competitive guy, and the stuff that we're talking about, they're fully aware of it. I mean, they really are. And sometimes it's hard to get kids to do what you want them to do. He doesn't throw his players under a bus, which I respect. respect. I'm a little different than old school. Don't get mad about technology, Mike. You know what I've gone through for 2 days, baby.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, kid. You're exactly right. It's that doesn't mean nobody's perfect, but if you don't think that Brad Underwood wants to win more than all of us do, you're wrong. I mean, that's his. I mean, I remember having a conversation with him where I told him, I said, "Hey, he said, we're getting old, man. You need to get us a national championship." And he goes, "That's the goal, man. That's why we're doing this." I mean, he wants to win as much as everybody else and or more than anyone else. I mean, these guys are they don't get to that level without being extremely competitive, right? I mean, that's what they are. And they want to win. So, as well as I do that probably if, and he said it, like he said, it burned his ass, the way they lost to UCLA. So he's pissed too, and so I don't know. I think sometimes we live in a vacuum too. We don't look at and I think every fan base is like that. They really look at their own, struggles and think their team sucks and every other team's great. And last week, what was it? Number 1 lost, number 2 lost twice heading into last week. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 all lost. Everybody lost. I mean, it's not shocking. I mean, that's just college basketball today's day and age. And there's a lot of upsets. It's hard to win on the road. And also you have a lot of talent's very spread out among the top teams because everybody's spending money. And none of these teams seem to have the great depth, because if they're really good, you might as well get more money and go somewhere else, right? And so you're not going to be the 7th or 8th guy. So that's where I like Illinois in a couple regards. I like Jake Davis and Ben Hummerkaus because they're guys that are role players, and you got to have guys that don't have to have the ball. If you have 5 guys that want the ball, it's really hard.
Those are 2 nice guys to have too. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, and you look at Dean Smith, won an NCAA title in his 20th season with North Carolina, and I still remember as a kid that he was known as a choke artist because he had 6 Final Fours that he didn't win before he got there to win it under Michael Jordan. And everybody was like, gosh, do they need to get a coach who can win the big one? And so at the point when he had won, he had gotten to 6 Final Fours, that wasn't good enough. So I guess every coach, to some point, you get to the point where people want you to break through. And if you don't break through, whatever level that is, people get frustrated. And one can argue that if Dean Smith didn't, if he didn't have that Michael Jordan year, maybe he wouldn't have been around to win the title, 10 years later, when he won,
yeah.
So it's hard to know.
What does Roy Williams never won at Kansas, right?
Exactly. I mean, he had to go to North Carolina.
And he went to North Carolina, and then he won. And then even there, it was like until, the 2005 year was the year that they won, right? And that was his year. And then, they're always in the mix, right? I mean, they lost the second round in 03-04, and it was like, wait, how do you lose the second round and be that? I don't know. There's always that knock on these guys, and you never win in March until you, what, Mike? Win in March, right? And so,
well, and or I mean, let's flip it. Tom Izzo's clearly one of the better coaches in the Big Ten, but if one wanted to take just the half glass, the glass half empty, you'd say, well, he's been there 25 years and hasn't won a title. So what good is he? It's like, I don't know. It's a really interesting slope that you get on when you start judging coaches. And the one thing that I do think Josh Whitman is incredibly smart about is he takes a look about like, hey, who am I going to get that's better than what I have right now? And so that's like the anti-Mike Thomas, who would just fire somebody and then find out that there's absolutely no one who wants the job. And you end up,
it's because of who the AD was. But
yes, it was.
Yeah. So, but you go back to that. I mean, I think that's true. Like Izzo hasn't been to a Final Four since 2019. We call him Mr. March, right? But, since 2019 Final Four, lost in a play-in game, lost in round 2, Sweet 16, round 2, then made the Elite 8 last year. So, I mean, it's not like, I don't know, but we still call him March, right? Mr. Tom, they always say January, February, Izzo, right? Well, because he had all those runs. But, if you're just judging it based on recency, then you wouldn't be as excited about it. So
yeah,
I think it all happens. And the hard part is, again, you can go through all these guys who don't win. Jay Wright took him a long time to get to win his natty, right?
Yeah, I don't think we're trying to call anybody out. We're just trying to give you an alternate way of looking at it. Hopefully that's not threatening to anyone. But the bottom line is we see a lot of people who, want to fire Underwood, and
it's all about
in particular, Brad and Ked had to go through the entire Gross era and the last 3 years of Weber, and it took Underwood, without the modern transfer rules, 2 years of basketball to get through what his predecessor kind of left him. So I just think that maybe the point of view on this show is a little more appreciative, because I don't want to waste nearly a decade of my life like we did the last 3 years of Weber, the 5 years of Gross, and the first 2 years that Underwood had to slog through the crap.
Too bad they didn't have the transfer portal then. But no, I think, and here's the thing, nobody's trying to make anybody feel bad. Like, here's the reality. Just because someone has a different perspective doesn't mean that it's like your perspective's wrong or this is wrong. We have different perspective. We're giving rationale for why that happens. If you feel bad, that's you. That's not us. Sorry.
I'll say this. I understand where it's coming from, but I don't agree with it to a certain extent, because we're not yelling and screaming in the microphone or cussing. Doesn't mean that we're not mad. I cannot speak for Mike Hagley and Brad Sturdy, but if you want to know, Pat 007, I'm sorry, 75, I see that. Yes, I'm mad about it. I still am mad about it, but I'm not going to come on the show and be unprofessional about it. I was mad last weekend. I'm still mad about it. And I don't know if you get on the show to begin with. I was honest about it. There needs to be some adjustments, but I'm not going to sit here and cuss and speak loud in the microphone and, rant and rave about it. Yeah, I'm upset. I want to see things done differently. I've said that, and people should be. I mean, I want to hear it. Honestly, I really, really want to hear what you guys have to say. I'm not mad at it. I'm not going to shoot anybody down, because out of the 3 people on this podcast, I don't want to use the word negative, but probably the most opinionated of the 3 of us. So, but that doesn't mean that I need to browbeat somebody and make them feel like trash because of it. I do want to see some changes. People should have it. That's why you're on here. We're not trying to make money to where you think, okay, we just want to say the right thing and make people happy. Say what you got to say and back your points up.
And I like Jay's point. The winning 6 in a row is tough, and only one team every year does it.
Yes. Thank you.
And when you look at the odds of a single elimination, like, I would like Illinois' chances a lot better if every time was a 7-game series, because there aren't many teams that are going to beat Illinois 4 out of 7 games.
Right.
So I would much prefer to have a series, but unfortunately we'd be here it'd be fun. We'd be here till August. And this one I do agree with. I would like to see Illinois fast break a little more often. I'm not certain if everybody on the team would actually get to the end of the court.
They might still be back on defense. At least they'd have somebody back on defense.
I do agree.
I think Wagler, Boswell, and Stojakovic could do really well in the fast break. You should utilize that with those guys. And I think Zonomir can run back. I think those guys, you could do that. And you know what? Ben, he's quick enough to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think
the one thing about fast break is, as I agree with you, I'd like to see them take opportunities when they're there. And take advantage of things. The problem was, like, during that UCLA run, that game got really fast paced.
Then you don't need to do that. Yeah.
And that's the thing. That was the hard part of turning it back. Think about how many pull up threes we had. Like, there were 3 no pass threes in almost Boswell took one that was just wildly bad. If you're big guys, we've talked about Tommy is not the fastest human being alive. And he's not going to be down there to rebound. Merkovich is not the fastest human being alive. They're not down there then to go to the offensive glass. And so it makes it tough. One of your biggest strengths is your offensive rebounding. So if you take a quick shot especially a quick three, that's tough. Now, if it's Davis or Hummerkaus coming down in transition, your guys are shooting whatever, maybe. But I still would like to see him get to the rim in transition. That's why I love Stojakovic getting the ball down the floor. I like Boswell getting to the rim in transition, as opposed to just settling for threes.
Are you saying, and I want to make sure I get this on record, are you saying that if we had Randy Moss race against Merkovich, that you're picking Randy Moss?
I am. I know that's a shocker, but I would. Yeah.
Wow. So we are actually. Here's
the thing. I'm not sure that I wouldn't pick Ked. And so.
Okay. Here's the question. St. Dominic's. And I got to give him credit. He waited 45 minutes to get this out there, because he could have done this in the first minute.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question. So if they lose, I don't think he's on the hot seat. But I do think that they have to have some success in the tournament. I mean, now my idea of success is making the Sweet 16. If you make the Sweet 16 consistently, you're putting yourself in a position. Now, and I think we got to look at kind of what's our long-term thing. What's this, Brad's 9th year, correct?
Yep.
1 year they didn't get a tournament, so whatever. But so if you in every 10 years, if you can make a Final Four, if you can make the Sweet 16 half the time, and maybe we don't even count those first 3 years, because 2 years there was makeup, and then the third year they didn't have a tournament. But so you want to make the Sweet 16, you want to have opportunities. So everything after that is hard, right? But yeah, I mean, I think if you consistently don't make it out of the first round, you're almost like, how do we say it? It's like not making the Sweet 16. I feel like Weber was a little bit like this, Bruce Weber, where it was almost like purgatory. We're just good enough not to make the Sweet 16. You know what I mean? Like after 2005. Obviously in 2005 they were good. And 2004 they made the Sweet 16, made the Final Four national championship game. 2006 they probably had the opportunity. I think after that it would have been tougher, but those were all teams that weren't Sweet 16 type teams from 07 to his. So you want to have teams. I think this team is a Sweet 16 level team. They're a team that can be in that mix and make the Sweet 16. So, yeah, I mean, not getting out of the first week would be a huge disappointment. And I think then you start thinking, all right, what do we need to do differently to make this happen? Because, we made one Sweet 16 in the last, 6 tournaments. And these are all, and I feel like all those teams had the opportunity or the ability, maybe except the one, the Mayer, not John Mayer, Matthew Mayer team, that team with the freshman Epps and so forth. That team probably was not a Sweet 16 level team. They lost in the first round to Arkansas, but I think every other team had an opportunity. So if you're only one for 6, then you start saying, wait, okay, we need to be better than this. Now, does that put you on the hot seat? Probably not, but it does mean that you start inching towards that.
I don't think you'll be on the hot seat. I look at it like this. I think the one part I agree with it, we'll start to look at things. But when you win 20, 25 games every year, you sell out the State Farm Center, you're competing on a national level. I think Josh is fully aware of what it takes to win a national title. But I think if they lost in the first round, people are going to be mad. They're going to complain. The donors are going to be mad. But then Josh's part, his trump card is, that's not a bad choice of word. His card that he can go to is, what was it like before I got here? Because he talked about what it was like when he was in college and how much he liked it, the atmosphere. The State Farm Center is sold out all the time. People travel. Look at the USC game. Look at the UCLA game. I remember a couple of years ago when they went to UCLA in that tournament in Terrence Shannon's junior year, place was full of Illinois fans. So I don't think it's on a hot seat. Is it going to make people mad? Yes. I mean, I would be upset. I'm still upset about losing, but I don't think he's going to be on the hot seat. I don't even know if there'll be a conversation that I said that, but I don't know if it will be, because I think Brad is fully aware of what it takes to get there. He's been there before, not a Final Four, but I'm not going to judge him. I don't want to lose sight of what Brad said earlier. You look at every coach that we all think that who are the best coaches in the game. Coach K is everybody's go-to guy. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can assure you he's had a lot of first and second round losses as well to bad teams like Bill Self, like Tom Izzo, whoever you want to name. Roy Williams. They all, Mike, you just mentioned Dean Smith. They've all had them.
Matt Painter and Virginia Tony Bennett.
Yeah, exactly. Here's one I think about the defense. I don't know if you want to trap too often. Trap is a double-edged sword, but I do like the idea, and I know I'm the minority on this. I do like the idea of playing a little bit of zone. If you want to watch a really good video, watch Brad Underwood when he was at South Carolina. His 3-2 zone video that's on YouTube. I use that to coach my teams in playing a 3-2. The zone defense is a challenge because once you figure out what Boeheim did and you realize that whatever zone you're in, the guy who's on the ball has to play like a crazy ass man-to-man because you have to prevent the ball from having the easy skip pass. Once you figure that out and you can iron out your rotations, zones are pretty good, but today's shooters are also designed to blow apart a zone.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword, but if you have a smart team with high basketball IQ, which Illinois does part of the game, it would – I think there's times that they could use a few different zones to throw off the look.
I agree,
I don't think
Mike.
it can be your backbone anymore.
No, but I agree with you. They've done that a lot this year, right?
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned USC. They mentioned USC game where they did the little half court trap, things like that. I don't think they can do that consistently, but they can do that at times. Now, I think the problem at UCLA, they were so afraid of the quickness of Dent, and they were also
for good reason.
Yeah, he is quick.
Yeah.
But I think they were a little afraid of them. And then the other thing, Bilodeau is the best shooting big man in the country, and I think that scared them a little bit by giving up some options. But I think more than anything, defensively, I mean, obviously there were issues, all these things. A lot of it was not execution. Like, if Bilodeau's got the ball, Z, who is the longest player except for Mara in the Big Ten, just stood and looked at him and let him line up a three and shoot it and didn't even come out. I mean, like, this is not the way you are. That's a game. That's a scouting report. That's not understanding
But that's
the
not even
situation.
scouting report, Brad. That's basic basketball. The ball can't be unguarded.
See, that's what I was going to say earlier, but I'm glad you mentioned it. You can't, and he did that. And how many times did Tommy do it? You can't do it. If you guys remember, they went to a zone in the second half, and I forget the guy's name. Brad, you just said it. The shooter, the wing. At the free throw line, all he had to do was turn right around, and he made it. He did.
Yeah, I mean, nobody even came up. Then later on, they moved up. You can't let him make one. I mean, it's not like you don't know he can shoot. Like, I mean, it's not like some kid who comes off the bench with his Rec Specs goggles on, and you're trying to figure out, you don't know who he is, and you say, all right, let's see if we can make one. No, this guy's shooting 45% from three.
Yes, he is. And I'm thinking there's no way. Yes, he was the one guy. I think they try. I'll tell you what, Mike, I like the zone, but I'm not a fan of it like I used to be. And this is me, I guess, evolving with the time. Back in the day, it was good. I look at the offenses that these teams run against zones. It's good, man, and you get layups out of it. Back in the day when we played, you never got to the paint in the zone. Now there's so many offenses. I mean, like, I know we're talking men's basketball, but Shauna Green does this thing where, like, her big will screen if it's a 2-3 zone, she will send a person off the middle, off the back, and her big will screen for an easy layup for Barry Wallace. I didn't see that back in the day, and I'm talking high school or colleges. So that's why you don't see a lot of teams play it anymore. And like you mentioned, teams are better shooters. They're picking the 2-3 zone on the wing. It's just so many more options on. But what I would like to see, I think it is hard. I think a really, really good matchup zone would be tough. Here's what I'll do. This is me as a coach. I'm Brad Underwood. I'm calling John behind. I'm going to send my defensive coach out with you. I'm going to come out with you, and we're going to sit with you for a week or two, and then you're going to teach us this matchup zone. That matchup zone was tough. He didn't win all the time with it, but it kept him in games, and it was hard. And if you don't, in the Big Ten or in the tournament, you don't have a lot of time to prepare for it. You just don't, because it's hard. Illinois has a matchup zone, but not to that extent. I would like to see things like that done personally. Those are things I've talked about doing different, but I will say this, and I'll be done. My biggest thing is I want to see changes, if there's to stop leading and some different imaginations out of a timeout instead of just saying timeout, catch your breath, we got to go rebound, or we have to lock out, or this possession. I want to see somebody take that clipboard, and anybody follows me on Twitter, I will show multiple coaches or assistant coaches who are doing it. Take the time in the offseason and spend the time and force yourself. What do we do if we're down by one? What do we do if a team's doing this? What are you going to do differently? I think personally, that would get them over in a lot of games. I really think it would, because I think the talent is there, fellas.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I don't know. I guess I take a look at it, and to me, I would just like to see, I'd like to see a little bit of variance. I do think that you, as a coach, if you don't coach attacking the ball, even though you're in a zone, you're gonna die, because and once coaches figure that out, their teams play much better zones. But again, the thing I get a kick out of is when people talk about like 80s basketball versus today. The shooting is just so different, and what these guys can do to you from a lot. Look at Keaton Wagler. He's shooting threes from further out than Trent Tucker did at Minnesota back in the 80s, when everybody thought Trent Tucker was amazing, and hitting a significantly higher percentage. I mean, they can shoot you out of zones pretty darn quick if you're not just going Captain Insane on the ball.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. But the one thing you got to do is you got to play it. I think if you play it sporadically,
I agree, it
makes it harder, because they get in their sets later. Everything moves a little, and with the shot clock, it's different too. So it's fun. There's a lot, but I totally agree. I don't care. Even if you just play man to man, you have to vary your defense. You can't do the same thing every time against every time. Yeah, so doesn't work.
No, that's good. Recruiting wise, anything on the recruiting front that we've put out there a few days ago on the Illini guys?
Well, Ked talked to Jackson Davis' dad, right? Didn't you talk to Brian?
Yeah, I tell you what was cool about that with Jackson Davis, and I didn't realize the dad I put on our message board. I mean, he contacted me again, and we played linebacker at Illinois. We have a big debate on our message board, so if you guys want to see what the debate is, come join us. I'm gonna not share everything on there. I'm a big fan of that kid. I think that kid's talented. There was some debate about his size and all those kind of things, but I think, and I don't know what the coaches are thinking about it. You get a kid like that, this kid is putting up 40, 50 points a game. He is really athletic. He's a left-handed kid. I like his game, and I'll tell you what, I talked to his father because he had some success at Illinois. He liked it. He liked his time in Champaign, and he thought it was great. And I think he, and all the fact that Illinois is recruiting his son. But there's always going to be competition with kids like that. And you think about it, Illinois is going to get every kid. I'm not stupid enough to sit and say that. But I really think if this kid has some interest in Illinois, and there's a difference when you talk to a kid or a parent, I can pretty much tell now if they're blowing me off, if they're just saying the politically correct thing. I think when a parent reaches out to me, when I don't have to reach out to them or kid, there's some interest there. And so I like the fact that they're recruiting a kid like this. And I don't care if he's 6 foot or 6'1", the kid can score. Kylan Boswell is not 6'2". Trust me, he's not. He may be listed as 6'2". And I'm going to tell you, in Brad Underwood's offense, I think this kid will be good because he's really, really quick. He can defend. And I don't know what he's going to do in college, but he's a much better shooter than what he's given credit for, that people give credit for. So I like him. I don't know what they're going to do. I know they're going to recruit some size. And I'm excited, Mike. I know we're at the top of the hour here for the transfer portal. That's probably my favorite time of the year. It was culture shock to me for years. I love the hot, juicy gossip in the transfer portal. So I'm really curious to see what Illinois is going to do. They're really careful about who they're going after. There'll be kids on campus, but I can tell you right now that staff is not asleep. They know what they're doing. And like every other coach, they're all starting to eye guys that they're looking at and who they want to bring into the team next year.
Hey, I'll tell you this. There was an article on On3. I think it was Joe Tipton wrote it. I'm talking about the portal and already there, and I've had the same conversations with guys. I mean, you have back channeling going on. I will tell you this: I've gotten messages from players either coaches or parents from other schools about would Illinois be interested in this kid, or would Illinois be interested in my son, or whatever, or where are they at with this? What do you think? Like, and asking, just trying to gauge interest, back channel, things like this. And it's happening all over. And it's really interesting to see the level of players that will reach out to Illinois as soon as they're got the green light, right? And the level of, and it happens. And so when that's happening right now, it's just insane that it's going on. You're in the middle of your season, not only your regular recruiting, you're already trying to figure out, you don't know who's coming back either. So yeah, it's wild time, and it's going to be a blast. I'll tell you, and I can attest this. I'm sure Ked can too. There's already some of the, names that you would never imagine that are looking to find that, because they're all trying to get the big payday, right? What payday can I get? Some of them are actually, there's one in particular who's not looking for a payday. He's looking for a place where he can be a kind of a featured player. And so that stuff happens. It's wild.
I know who that player is, but I can't say.
But you can go to IlliniGuys.com and get a lot of those nuggets.
I'll tell you this, Mike. Let me give you a tip. Sorry, Mike. And this kid is playing on a top 10 team in the country. So if that's not a nugget for you, I don't know what it is. Sorry, Mike.
Wow. So, yeah, so $99 a year. Come on. We'd love to have more people for our community. And you can get in the game room for the last 10 or so games as Illinois marches to an NCAA championship. That'll be fun. And our game room is not for the weak need. And of course, we get more new subscribers during Portal Combat than any other time of the year, which totally took us by surprise. But having a lot of inside knowledge on what's going on is an advantage. And that's why we have Brad and Ked. And that's why people subscribe at Illini Guys. So, folks, we will be back for the game on Friday night. Most likely, we will do a halftime and a post-game show. Certainly would love to see you there for that. Until then, go Illini.